How the fuck you... The moment you realise you have a fucking beaver dam for a fucking hair, dude. Fucking cheers. How the fuck you festering fuckaroos doing today? It's the Aussie Metalhead here, again coming at you guys with another album review today. We are going to be reviewing an album that dropped a couple of weeks ago. I am not very prepared for this, as you might be able to tell, but nevertheless we're going to be talking about Strangest Fruits, the latest offering from Zeal Ardor, the Bandcamp project from Swedish composer Manuel Gnu. This is the same guy that was responsible for the previous album, Devil Is Fine, released in 2017. And that was a very interesting album. It made it into my top 10 of last year. I thought it was an extremely interesting new route to take with the black metal sound. I was very impressed with the majority of the work on the album. I thought it was something fresh. I thought it was something really different. I fucking thoroughly enjoyed it. And so here we are, 2018. Let's see what the fuck else they've got to offer. Okay, so the first thing that I really noticed about this album is how much fucking longer it is than the original. The first album was about 10 tracks long. 3 of those tracks being weird little minute-long instrumental tracks that sort of acting like interludes, the connective tissue, as it were, linking the rest of the songs together. It's that sort of afternoon. So I was really impressed with the added length of this album. This is a 16-track album, and it's about 40 minutes rather than the 28 to 30 that we saw last time. I really fucking enjoyed this album, guys. I'm not going to fucking lie. In fact, I would be sort of going out on a major limb, probably going to lose the favour of so many of you hardcore black metal fans out there right now, man. Seriously. But the trigger warning... This is my favourite black metal album of the last 5. Okay, so yeah, this might not be what you'd consider, technically speaking, like your standard black metal affair. And again, I'm willing to compromise there with all of you genre-crazed terminology addicts out there who are going to be saying, that's not black metal, it's the ritualistic fucking black metal, whatever. This album in particular is much closer to the black metal format than Devil Is Fine ever was. As you remember, with Devil Is Fine, the album stuck to a structure the entire way through, and it didn't deviate from that structure much, if any, aside from those interludes I talked about before. This new album is a much more black metal heavy affair. Not only is the album a lot longer, which goes into part with quite a few black metal albums, it also has a much heavier emphasis on the black metal elements, the eccentricities, that were really just sort of used as a surface aesthetic on Devil Is Fine. You had tracks like Children's Summon, which was the closest thing to being an all-out black metal track, as it was about the only song on the full album that pretty much contained a heavy riff. I guess Blood in the River as well, but Blood in the River also was very similar to the format of the rest of the tracks of the album, like Devil Is Fine, like a Come On Down, etc., etc. This album definitely is a lot more dynamic than Devil Is Fine. The songs actually have a lot of changes. There are different riffs. There are a lot more lyrics. There's a hell of a lot more lyricism on this album. The previous album, the songs would usually center around a single hook, a single rhythm, and the lyrics would repeat multiple sections over. You would usually just have a classic. We have the chain-driven percussive vocal arrangements, and then you have the more heavy black metal elements with the blast beat drum and the tremolo picked riffs and whatnot, and that's really the only parts of the album where the guitar got to shine. Here, that's much more on the forefront. There is a hell of a lot more emphasis on the other instruments in the mix. I actually found things to be quite muddy last time around, particularly the drums. I'm not sure what went on there. I don't know if they recorded on a sampled kit or something like that. I'm not entirely sure what went on there, but I really was underwhelmed with the drums on the last album, which was okay because this was about an interesting listening experience. The production was a real secondary to me because it was just the performance that I was really getting into. But a better fucking mixed drum sound would have been much, much appreciated and would have helped boost that first album quite a bit. This is much rectified here, as the snare has a nice crisp tone to it. Everything's quite audible. Nothing's too muddy in the mix. Occasionally we get a little bit of warbling, but it's not enough to derail the experience at all. There's a lot more bass work on here, bass work that's actually listenable. It's actually quite audible in the mix, which is really interesting. Favorite tracks on the album are easily the main singles, Gravedigger's Chant, which still, after listening to the full album, is still one of the best songs that the album has to offer. It's absolutely fantastic. That hook is fucking great. The honky-tonk piano and the heavy bass drops in the chorus add a great deal of brevity. I also love Don't You Dare. I remember this song was actually released far before any of the promotional material for this new album began to drop. It was, in fact, a separate single that was recorded live off the floor, released as a music video, and that was all that I had to go off with that song. I fucking loved it when I listened to it last year, and I fucking love hearing it mixed now because it is so much more, and it is a lot heavier than the live version as well. Don't you dare look away, boy. My favourite track, however, is We Can't Be Found. Not only does it have one of the best swaggering blues guitar riffs starting off in the intro, it's probably the heaviest track they've ever released. Again, I'm fucking loving the fact that the black metal vocals are much more than just an aesthetic in the background. On this album, there are actual segments, choruses, bridges, verses, etc., where they are entirely screamed, which just adds so much more dynamicism to this mix. And look, I'm not coming out and saying that I think that Zeal Ardor is the best black metal band. Not saying that by any stretch of the imagination. I'm also not trying to say that what I think they're doing is better than anything else is being done, but what I can say is that this is the most interesting black metal-esque album I have listened to in a very fucking long time. I have a personal bias as I did enjoy the first album a lot, but this album to me strikes such a perfect balance between rhythm, groove, extremity, emotion, and atmosphere. I feel like it's everything that they were trying to capture on the first album, but they weren't quite there yet. This is so much more refined. The mix is much more matured. There's so much more dynamics going on between the various instruments. Everything's much clearer. The clarity of the guitar is much appreciated. Everything just felt so muddy on the previous album, and although I didn't think that ruined the experience, I mean, looking back in the history of black metal, a clean, pristine mix has never been high on the criteria for writing effective black metal. It's always come down to good songwriting and having that fucking atmosphere, and the mixing on the previous album did actually work to an extent, but we're talking about an album that is mixing elements of black metal, and I would really appreciate being able to hear those elements much more clearly and much more precisely, and I feel like that's what we get here on this album much, much more. I feel like the songwriting has come leaps and bounds, the amount of dynamic changes that are going on. It's everything that I really felt like the first album was missing. The long and short of it would essentially be that this is Devil Is Fine matured, and I'm really, really happy to be able to say that, because the sophomore slump is such a real issue when it comes to metal music. So many bands put so much time and effort into their first album without any real peer pressure, label pressure, fan pressure, pushing them maybe into making decisions very differently. But this is an album where they took all the best elements and dynamics from their original work, and they built on those and they made it better. And that is the best thing that you can fucking do for a sequel album. That's the best thing you can do as a follow-up, and I feel like the energy on this album is even more captivating than Devil Is Fine. Whilst the hooks might not be as memorable, I don't know, that's totally subjective. I did feel at times that Devil Is Fine was a little bit hookier, I suppose. Maybe that was due to the repetition of those songs. There's much more effort on repetition and solid grooves on that first album. This album is willing to take you out, do some different things. We Can't Be Found is a fantastic example, as it really changes up its time signatures, and there's some really interesting bass work towards the second half of the song. There's an awful lot going on, and at times you can get lost in that and you can forget that there's a groove that was going as well. Devil Is Fine excelled at the groove, but I feel like although there is some more technical work here, although there is more diverse songwriting, the hooks are still here in spades, I look simply to Don't You Dare and Gravedigger's Chant as absolutely fantastic examples of this. As I won't be doing a track-by-track analysis of this album this time, it's a very long album, and I'm just trying to get away from doing videos that are just ridiculously long, so I'm going to be trying to condense a lot more of my thoughts into more of an overview and summary rather than a breakdown and an analysis. If you guys want me to still do the track-by-track album format, please let me know in the comments, or if you'd rather something a little more streamlined, talking more about the album as a whole rather than the individual tracks. I'd love to hear from you, see what you guys think. I'm just trying to do something a little bit different, maybe doing a little bit of the rambling is sort of going to help get my videos a little bit smoother, a little bit more streamlined. I wanted to mention a few other tracks here though, namely, as I said before, Gravedigger's Chant, We Can't Be Found, and Don't You Dare are probably my favourite tracks on the album. But tracks like Row Row, Shit on Fire, Caligula, and Built on Ashes, and indeed Waste. Oh my god, Waste. These are some really intense fucking songs, man. And the dynamic changes. Row Row is an absolutely fantastic fucking example, as it goes from this real swinging ballroom blitz sort of vibe into a really dark, angry, fucking frothing at the mouth sort of build. The anxiety and the tension built up throughout the bridge and moving into this chorus of absolute desperation is really, really fucking satisfying. Absolutely phenomenal lyrics. Though there might be some superior hooks on Devil Is Fine, I believe the lyricism on this album tops Devil Is Fine in every sense. I fucking love some of the lyrical imagery on this album. Really powerful stuff. Very open, very sort of ambiguous in some sense, whilst there are definitely some stellar representations and interpretations of the work of this album. So much of it I am just so willing to sort of let it wash over me and just take it at its face value. Something I don't really like to do. I like to break things down and try and understand the meaning best as I can. But with this album, it's just so mysterious and intense, and it's such a unique listening experience that I just found myself enjoying it for what it was. And I believe that's good art when you can't take a step back when you're listening to it. You're so enthralled by what you're listening to that you ultimately lose yourself in it. I think that's a sign of a really fucking good album. So, in conclusion, Stranger Fruit builds on everything that I really felt like Devil Is Fine could have used more work on. It's a more dynamic, more interesting, more diverse listening experience. There's a greater focus on technicality and dynamic changes throughout the songwriting. The lyrics are much more plentiful, and I believe that they are a lot better written. The vocal presence is absolutely amazing. While Manuel's clean vocals are sultry and very, very enticing, the horrific, snarling, screeching fucking screamed vocals are super effective, as they are just a little too pitchy at times for my liking, but at the same time, that was always a huge element of black metal, was making music that was really uncomfortable to listen to. And I feel like in that sense, these uncompressed, dirty vocals really do that fucking justice. To conclude, I would have to be giving Stranger Fruit at least an 8.5 to 9 out of 10. There are a few songs that are weaker than others, definitely, and there are times where I felt like the hooks just weren't as consistently strong as the hooks found on Devil Is Fine. But regardless of this is a very strong maturation of an already exciting act that I am very fucking excited to see what they do next. This album is an absolute fucking treat. And if you're a fan of something that's outside the box, if you're a fan of something different, that's weird, that's quirky, I can't recommend this album to you guys enough. That's it for my fucking review here today, guys. I hope you fucking enjoyed it. I hope that you're not gonna fucking lynch me too hard for saying that this is my new favorite black metal album. I'm gonna be letting you guys into a little bit of a fucking spoiler. I don't normally like to do this, but here we go. I'm in a good fucking mood today, so I'm gonna give you some information. I will be reviewing Alien Weaponry's debut album next week. These guys are a New Zealand trio. The fucking younger brothers of Australia, and these fucking guys are ripping heads off with this new fucking album, man. I can't wait to show you guys and talk about it. If you haven't heard of Alien Weaponry, I fucking urge you to check them out before I get my review out next Saturday. You guys will not want to miss it. Alright guys, that'll be it for me today. Until next time, stay sick.